Hey everyone, welcome to the program WRSA Radio. I'm your host, Grenadier1. As always, I hope you are having a good week. Mine's been pretty good. Not too bad at work. A little cold in my part of the Appalachia stand, but other than that, getting by. So this week, I'm going to bring a little culture to you heathens out there. We're going to talk a bit about a painting and what it means and how it relates to our situation today. So let's kind of jump right into it. The painting I am referring to is called the Shepherds of Arcadia. It's by Nicolas Poussin. It was painted in 1650, and it's clearly done in the classical style, depicting these Greek shepherds with what might be seen as a female embodiment of wisdom. It's a few shepherds and a woman that is clearly not a shepherd girl. Okay, it's a beautiful painting. Like I said, very very classical style. It wasn't seen as very terribly significant at the time that it was done, but one thing to note is it's not the only time that Poussin painted the subject. And that he is not the only one that painted a version of it. He has an earlier version that I think he did in 1627, if I remember correctly. It was the 1620s. And there were other artists that depicted this and painted very similar themes in some of their works. But we're looking at the 1650 version, which is the one that is more famous of the bunch. But so I'll put this up in the show. You'll see this in the video of for the whole remainder of what we're talking about here. And you'll get a good look at it. There's some deeper things going on in the painting. But we're not really going to go down that route. What we see these shepherds looking at a gravesite or a tomb, and they're reading this inscription on the tomb, which is "Et in Arcadia ergo," which translates to "I was also in Arcadia." And the common interpretation of this theme is that what they're saying is that death awaits us even in this heavenly idyllic setting of Arcadia. Now, I don't really see that as the actual message, and that's not just because of some idea I'm pulling out of another region. Like I said, there are much more deeper meanings to this painting than are commonly seen. In fact, recently, and I say recently as in the last 10 or 15 years, this painting became part of the Rennes-le-Château mystery, which kind of got rolled into that Dan Brown Da Vinci Code thing. We're not going to go down that path today, although I find that topic really rather fascinating. But there is a meaning that came out of that line of study, I guess you would say, an interpretation of the painting from that vein, and is part of what I wanted to talk about. It's a different way of looking at the painting, I guess. If we look at the name Arcadia, that kind of gets to the basics of it. Arcadia was or is an actual place in Greece, and it came to be associated with an idyllic or pastoral type life, and it became, at least in my view, it was more of a continental or kind of French version look at this pastoral idyllic place that the English might have called Avalon, in English tradition, or even, I guess that was done also in Les Morts d'Arthur was, Avalon was the place that Arthur was carried off to, so it kind of has this sort of heaven on earth kind of look or vein to it. Same kind of mythic or ideal place, that kind of thing. And in that mythology, it's also looked at to be this sort of across the sea to the west, kind of the new world kind of view to it. So when you view it in that way, it's not hard to see how it is this kind of veiled allusion to the new world. And in fact, that's part of the kind of that Da Vinci Code kind of view of it, is that this painting was showing what could be seen as an older knowledge of the new world, that this was depicting some mystery from more ancient times of people that knew that the new world was out there, the Americas were out there. That's not entirely relevant how it relates to us today, but just to the general sense of the painting, in that it means something that is seen as kind of a golden future, if you will. And we've a couple of different messages coming out of this painting, depending on how you interpret it. So the first look that we're going to get into is a way of saying that these shepherds they're obviously living in this paradise. They're the shepherds of Arcadia, or in Arcadia, in this promised land. They're looking at this tomb for someone who is saying, hey, don't forget me. I was also in this promised land. Now, I don't think that means that they were actually, the person in the tomb was actually in the promised land, but they're there in spirit because of their sacrifice and suffering is what carried others to this place. And we see the shepherd girl, or the Lady Wisdom, with her hand on the shoulder of one of the shepherds, as if to say, yes, you are here because of them, because of their sacrifice. You are able to live in this idyllic, peaceful place. And at least I think that's kind of one depiction or interpretation of what is depicted in the scene. And in this way, it can be said that the painter is talking about this place as being a real place, and that it is somewhere that his descendants, or at least the offspring of his people, from his time, will be able to live, and due to the struggle of the forefathers. And you could see this as a warning to the children or the grandchildren, further, or even further down the line, to not forget your olds. Okay, don't forget the people who came before you. Don't forget that they struggled and died for what you have today. And you could see the inclusion of Lady Wisdom as being a point to show that, when you recognize this fact, you will have gained an amount of wisdom. You will see that you stand on the shoulder of giants. You have to honor the people that came before you, that sacrificed for you to live this lifestyle that you have. And the shepherds are obviously showing, a look of surprise or a look of revelation, reading off this inscription on the tomb. They don't recognize this. They don't understand this. They're seeing this and saying, "Oh, wait a minute. You mean this person was here too?" That kind of thing. But what is absolutely clear in this is the message that not everyone will get to enjoy the fruits of the promised land. Even if we accept that overt view of the painting that, even in paradise there is death, that message is there. We're not all going to make it. And I don't mean that to say something that should be self-evident. I just pointed out the obvious. Thanks, Captain. But, clearly many people are going to be lost along the way who were never really part of an actual struggle or journey to a golden future. They were just there, and they just got caught up or rolled over in the process. And, this is to say that many people who are today looking ahead to the future as something that they are trying to achieve and work towards are never going to see that future manifest. They will be there in spirit if we remember them, but they're never going to actually get there. It's a very mosaic kind of look at it, kind of story there. And this is kind of how it relates to us today, and I want to start on that before I open up on a different look at the same painting. There's another kind of self-evident statement here. A theme that we've touched on before, and one that I think has significant relevance to what we've seen over the last couple of weeks here in the U.S. And the phrase that comes to mind is that you can't get to a golden future or an ideal pastoral life without suffering and sacrifice. And there it is. There's that elephant in the room that we keep avoiding, but I've touched on before. And it would be easy to accuse me of wanting others to do the sacrificing while I enjoy the benefits. And, the skeptic could ask me, well, what I have done and what I've given to achieve this future. Well, more than some and not enough by others is how I would respond to that. I'm just as guilty as anyone else here. I am in my own way but a shepherd that has been touched by wisdom. I've come to the realization of what is before us, and now I hope to kind of guide others to that same place and show them the writing on the tomb, if you will, to reference back to the painting. I think far too many fall into this place of thinking of themselves as casual observers to what is taking place around us, and wishing for others to do the sacrificing so they may live in these fields of peace and tranquility. And that brings us to the periodic ritual of elections and voting. What I came to notice over the last few weeks, and as I read different articles and different people's view of the election, kind of had thoughts around this topic for this show, was that people continue to participate in this ritual not because they really expect it to achieve the results that they want. They do it because, I think they do it because they can place blame for the failures of society upon those that they've elected. They can say to themselves, I did the thing. I made all the motions and said all the magic words, and I sent you to the great city so that you would work for me and you would achieve these things. And they demand that those they sent do what they are not really capable of doing, and do this in the process of avoiding the demons and the snares of human nature. It's a task that very few can ever hope to accomplish, even though they promise that they will. They'll give their all to do it. They'll fight for us, and they get up there and make these statements for whatever sadistic or masochistic reason that they do it, but they do it. And these politicians, in the process, they become this kind of scapegoat, or in a way a sacrifice, and pseudo-sacrifice that people who vote think that they're making, and it's to avoid their own pain and suffering. They tell themselves that they can't give anymore, and here's the hook back to the painting. They always see themselves as the shepherd and never the person in the tomb. They always see themselves, assume that they are destined for the promised land in this golden future, and it is others that will pay the price for their journey. And that's not how any of this works, okay? That's not how you get to the promised land, all right? Which kind of gets us to this other view of the scene in the painting. If we look at this scene in a more metaphysical way, what we could say is that the shepherds are us in that future, but that we are also at the same time in the tomb. We are seeing a symbolic look at people who are looking back at their own personal past and gaining the wisdom that they cannot achieve the peace and tranquility without suffering a symbolic death. Killing all of yourself, your ego, letting your grip on the past die, letting your hold on material wealth and objects wither. Bury the person that you were. Sacrifice through suffering and pain, and when you have done that, you will be reborn in the new world and live to see that peace and tranquility. And this has been my own journey the last few months. As I said earlier, I am but a shepherd, but I have come to see that I'm also in the tomb. The old me, the old way of seeing things, the old acceptance of things that they, as they are. This is just the way things have always been. That's got to be put to rest. I must give up those things. I must seek out ways to move others forward with no personal expectation of ever getting something back from them. I must teach and lead and sow seeds that I will never see bloom into fruit. I must give up the idea that I will live to see any of the future that I want for my descendants come to pass. And when you do this, when you are free of this, when you've buried it in the tomb, the fact is that you come to realize that you're already in your own version of an idyllic place. I too was in Arcadia. It's a short show this week, guys, but I hope you enjoyed it. That's all I got time for. Like and subscribe. Come see us over on Gab and the Mothership, and I will see you on the next episode.